Welcome back to Radio Entrepreneurs. Again, my name is Jeffrey Davis. I'm the host of Radio Entrepreneurs. I'm also, for those who don't know, my full-time job really is chairman of the board and founder of Mage LLC, management consulting firm in the Boston area. Worked with over 700, the organization has over 700 leaders of organizations and family businesses in transition. Our next guest, well, this really is a first for me, is Kathleen Stern, founder and owner of Boston area Doulas. Now, I'm going to let you tell our listeners what Doulas does, because I'm
Yes.
sure you can reproduce this better than me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, no, thank you for having me, Jeffrey. I'm the founder, I'm the owner of Boston area doulas, and a doula is actually, it's a Greek word that means one who serves. So we provide non-medical support to pregnant people, to people who are giving birth, and also to new parents who bring their babies home. So we're not there to take the place of a medical provider like an OB or a midwife. But we're there to complement that care with sort of a healthy dose of physical support, that emotional constancy. And also, we have information and resources that are evidence-based. And I can help you sort of make this journey and transition to parenthood a little bit smoother.
Well, already so many questions are running through my head. I'm sure I've forgotten a few already. But could you give us a sense of your background and your journey into entrepreneurship?
Yes. So I come to being a business owner in a very circuitous route. I was a middle school English teacher prior to becoming a doula and the owner of this doula agency. So I had a baby 9 years ago. She's lovely. But I will be honest, it was a pretty challenging experience for me. I'm the sort of person that is used to feeling successful if I read enough, if I research, if I try hard enough. And when I brought home my baby, I realized she hadn't read any of the books that I had read, and she didn't really get the memo on what was supposed to be happening in terms of sleep and feeding. And it was this weird disconnect where for the first time in my life, I didn't feel like I had the tools to feel productive, successful. So that was a huge wake up call to me. Zoom kind of fast forward, I had my second baby about 6 years ago. And before that, I knew I needed some kind of different support. So when I brought home my baby, I had the support of a postpartum doula. It was a friend of a neighbor, sort of heard I had struggled the first time with my first. She was very fussy, very colicky. And so with my second daughter, I was able to have this doula come over a few times a week, check in around how are you recovering? How's this transition going? Do you need me to hold the baby for 45 minutes while you take a nap? And then we can check in around how this is all going. And long story short, that planted the seed for me to become a doula because the two experiences I had with both of my kids were so drastically different. And I saw the impact that a doula could make. So I thought, okay, I want to do this with other folks. And so this whole time I was a teacher, I was an instructional coach in Boston, coaching teachers. So I played sort of this coaching role that I felt comfortable with. And then finally in 2020, started the pandemic or just before, I finally trained and certified as a doula. And I took the leap to leave my fully salaried, fully benefit job and jump into this world. I think that a few things that helped me in this journey, I got the sort of wise counsel of a few folks because again, I didn't go to business school. I don't have an MBA. I have a master's in teaching, but that didn't really help me to start a business. So one, I have a business mentor who I met with. Her name's Randy Patterson. She is the CEO of a doula training organization called Pro Doula. It's based in New York, and met with her a few times to talk about what it means to start a business as a doula, to start a doula agency, to have a group of independent contractors who are also working, with families that I am contracting with. And I also connected with a great accountant because now I was doing my taxes as a individual, but it's a whole other thing to be managing QuickBooks and understanding profit and loss sheets and paying myself, setting up a retirement account, that sort of thing. And then I connected with a great business lawyer in the state, and he helped me with setting up contracts for clients that we are taking on, families we're taking on, but also contracts with my independent contractors that made sense for Massachusetts. And I'll say also things like setting up an LLC. It's not just like click, 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 and I'm all set and I have an LLC. There's a lot of other things that go into it. So surrounding myself with a few of those mentors and experts really made a difference. And I continue to check in with them today.
I think that's very helpful. Obviously, being a consultant for over 40 years, seeing how you've surrounded yourself with a expert team to help you through the process. But in hindsight, is it what you expected?
I don't think I realized quite the demand for doulas. In the beginning, it was just something I wanted to do because I felt a passion for it. I knew the personal impact it would have, but it seemed like the floodgates kind of opened when I got my website running, and SEO kind of increased, and we get a ton of inquiries every day from families looking for support. Either they're pregnant, they're having a baby, they want birth doula support, and they're giving birth in a hospital, or they brought their new baby home and they need some support there. I think it might be a little bit of the pandemic and that period of isolation for folks, and thinking, we did this all by ourselves. We do not want to do this again. So that's the big thing that surprised me, not so much from a business standpoint, but just the sheer demand and really increase in popularity in doulas in recent years.
So, the name makes it sound like this profession's been around for a long time. Maybe it has. Maybe I just didn't know anything about it. It does seem to be much more of a current trend. Can you inform me about that, sort of how the evolution of the whole coaching in this area has evolved? I find it very intriguing. It's, when we first started coaching at Mage, as far as our research showed, we were the first company to do coaching inside of a corporation. So it's interesting to innovate for me.
Right. So the idea of a doula is not new at all, but the certification process around doulas, the training process around doulas started a few decades ago. So there is one of the older doula certifying organizations started a few decades ago and sort of legitimized the work that people had already been doing. So support people in a hospital or in a home situation or in a birth center situation, supporting folks, that now had a name, and that had a amount of training behind it, that had continuing education that was required of people. And that really only started in the last few decades. And I will say, since then, I think since the 1970s or so, there's been quite an increase in the number of doulas. But I also think in the last 5 to 10 years, sort of a change in the idea of what a doula is. There's sometimes this doula stereotype that I can only have a doula if I have a home birth, or I can only have a doula if I'm not going to have any medication and my doula uses essential oils and they're wearing clogs and the flowy skirt and all these things. That's the stereotype that we think of.
Not Birkenstocks.
Yeah, maybe Birkenstocks too. But that's not really the reality. There's certainly that type of doula, but there's really a doula for everybody. A doula now is simply this kind of combination of sort of this executive coach, therapist, concierge who can walk along different phases of pregnancy and birth and early parenthood with you. And now there's been sort of this proliferation of different certifying organizations out there. So there's over a dozen certifying organizations for doulas, and there's not one set standard curriculum for doula training either. So you have a lot of different routes that doulas have taken in their education, a lot of different paths to certification to still do the same thing, which is to really be physically present, emotionally tune into people, and be that resource and that advocate for them.
Do you ever find that men reach out to you?
All the time. Yeah. Yeah. So sometimes I find that, especially if, let's say, their partner is pregnant and, they want to take the kind of heavy lifting off of them, they're reaching out. Hey, my partner would love some doula support, or we're bringing home a new baby, or hey, our baby was born a week ago. We're exhausted. We need some help. So I get calls a lot of the time, especially from parents and men who have new babies and like, I got to do something here. I don't know quite. I can't take the burden off of my partner in terms of feeding and all of that, but I can enlist some additional support, additional hands to hold the baby, help with feeding, all that stuff.
It
Yeah.
is the most life-changing event I think
Yeah.
any person could ever go through.
Yeah.
Very intriguing. And I'd love to know more about it. Maybe you'll come back again. If somebody's looking for your services to learn more, read more about it, how do they find you and your website?
Yeah, they can reach out on bostonareadoulas.com. And you can also find us on Instagram, social medias all over these days. We're at Boston Area Doulas on Instagram.
Well, again, just so interesting, a whole different type of entrepreneur, very exciting from school teacher to doulist, just an unbelievable journey. And I want to thank you for being on the show today.
Well, thank you, Jeffrey, for having me. I
Right.
appreciate it.
And remind everybody there's more stories and you can find us on all our links on Radio Entrepreneurs.